I stared at my computer screen, coffee growing cold beside me. The company banking dashboard had just finished loading, and I blinked hard, sure I was seeing things wrong. Balance, $0. I refreshed the page, same number. I refreshed again, still 0. My hand started trembling so badly I knocked the coffee cup over. Brown liquid spread across my desk, soaking into important papers, but I couldn't move to clean it up. All I could do was stare at that impossible number on the screen. $347,000. Gone. Every single penny we had raised from investors, every dollar we had carefully saved for payroll, rent, and vendor payments. All of it had vanished overnight while I slept peacefully in my apartment across town. I clicked into the transaction history, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Transfer after transfer filled the screen, all made between midnight and 4 a.m. Each one was authorized with credentials that matched our company protocols perfectly. Every single transfer went to the same unfamiliar account. I didn't recognize the bank name at first. Then I saw the account holder's name printed clearly on the screen, and my whole body went cold. Cade Mills, my co-founder, my business partner, my best friend for 4 years. I rushed out of my small office and into the open workspace where our team usually gathered each morning. Cade's desk sat in the corner by the large window, the spot he had claimed on our first day because he liked watching the city streets below while he worked on sales calls. His chair was gone. His laptop was gone. His stupid motivational calendar featuring mountain climbing photos was gone. Only his keycard remained, placed neatly in the center of the empty desk like a farewell note that didn't need any words. My fingers fumbled with my phone as I pulled up Slack. No messages from him since yesterday afternoon. I tried email next. Nothing there either. I called his cell phone and got sent straight to voicemail after just one ring, meaning he had manually declined my call. Panic rising in my chest like floodwater, I called his wife Dakota. The phone didn't even ring once. Instead, a robotic voice told me the number I was trying to reach was no longer in service. I stood frozen in the middle of the office, employees starting to arrive and giving me confused looks. I ignored them and opened Cade's shared calendar on my phone with trembling fingers. Most of it was empty, but today had one entry blocked in red. Miami, one way. By noon, I found myself sitting in our glass-walled conference room, feeling like a criminal on trial for a crime I didn't commit. Across the polished table sat Richard Townsend, one of our lead investors, his face tight with barely controlled anger and obvious disappointment. He slid a printed wire notification across the table toward me without saying a word at first. Then he spoke, his voice cold. Care to explain what happened here? I was still wearing the oversized hoodie I had slept in the night before, my hair unwashed, my eyes red and puffy from holding back tears all morning. This was the same room where I had confidently pitched our billion-dollar vision just 8 months ago. Now I felt like a careless intern who had somehow lost the entire petty cash drawer. I explained everything I knew. The empty account discovered this morning. Cade's complete disappearance. The one-way flight to Miami blocked on his calendar. Richard listened without interrupting even once, his expression growing darker and more severe with each new detail I shared. When I finally finished talking, he leaned back in his expensive chair and crossed his arms tightly across his chest. Why did you give him so much access to everything? Didn't you have better controls in place? Dual authorization requirements? We trusted each other completely, I whispered. This might be a total loss, and it's on you. The police station smelled like old burnt coffee and industrial floor cleaner. I sat on a hard plastic chair under harsh fluorescent lights that buzzed and flickered occasionally, waiting for someone in authority to actually care about what had happened to me and my company. Officer Daniels finally called me over to his cluttered desk. He looked exhausted and overworked, like he had already heard 1,000 stories sadder and more urgent than mine today, and was mentally preparing to hear 1,000 more before his shift ended. I told him everything from the beginning, the stolen money, Cade's carefully planned disappearance, the one-way flight to Miami. He typed my statement slowly using just 2 fingers, occasionally glancing up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read or interpret. So you willingly signed him as a co-founder of your company? He asked flatly. Yes, 4 years ago. And you both had equal access to all the company accounts? Yes, but he held up his hand to stop me. Ma'am, this really sounds like a civil matter to me. Business partners have financial disputes all the time, unless there's clear evidence of criminal intent that I'm missing here. He stole $300,000 and ran away to Miami. Officer Daniels sighed heavily and slid his business card across the desk toward me. What you need right now isn't a police report. You need a good lawyer. I need to take you back 4 years to the very beginning when all of this started. Back when Cade Mills was just a charming stranger, I happened to meet at a crowded coffee shop in the busy downtown district. I had been sketching product ideas on paper napkins, my laptop open to endless spreadsheets filled with calculations and code snippets for a platform I had been dreaming about building for years. Cade noticed my frantic work and confidently slid into the empty seat across from me with an easy, disarming smile. That looks like something that could genuinely change the world, he said, nodding toward my messy napkin drawings. I laughed nervously and told him it was just a logistics platform concept, software that could potentially help small businesses manage their shipping and inventory operations better than the expensive enterprise solutions the big corporations used. Nothing truly revolutionary. Everything revolutionary starts with someone saying, "It's nothing revolutionary," he replied smoothly. We talked for 3 hours that day, coffee growing cold and then getting replaced twice. He had the natural charm, the sharp sales instincts, the remarkable ability to make anyone believe in anything he said. I had the technical skills, the clear product vision, the ability to actually write the code. We signed incorporation documents in his tiny apartment kitchen 2 months later, promising each other we would always split everything fairly. Back to the present. Back to the disaster. Payroll was supposed to run on Friday. By Thursday afternoon, my team started noticing something was wrong. Their Slack messages flooded my screen faster than I could read them. Is this a glitch? Why did the payment fail? Should I be worried? I wanted to protect them. I wanted to tell them everything would be fine, that this was just a temporary setback. But I couldn't lie to the people who had trusted me with their careers. I called an emergency meeting in the break room. 8 faces stared back at me, ranging from confused to terrified. I took a deep breath and told them the truth. Cade was gone. The money was gone. I didn't know what would happen next. The room went silent. Someone's phone buzzed, but nobody moved to check it. Finally, Reed, our junior developer, raised his hand like we were in school. His voice cracked when he spoke. So, do we still have jobs? I looked at each of their faces, these people who had believed in our company, who had turned down other offers to join us. I don't know, I admitted. Not yet. The next few weeks were the darkest of my life. Bills piled up on my desk like a physical wall I couldn't climb over. The landlord sent emails that grew angrier each day. Subscription services canceled themselves one by one. Friends called with advice that all sounded the same. Shut it down, walk away, chalk it up as a painful lesson, and start something new when you're ready. You're young, my mother said on the phone. You'll recover from this. But she didn't understand. This company wasn't just a job or an investment. It was 4 years of my life. Every late night and early morning, every sacrifice I had made. I found myself staring at a half-completed bankruptcy filing on my laptop, the cursor blinking at me like it was waiting for me to give up. My finger hovered over the submit button. One click, and it would all be over. The debt, the stress, the constant feeling of drowning. I could walk away and never look back. I sat there for a long time, tears rolling down my cheeks. Then I closed the tab and whispered to the empty room. No, not like this. It was 2 a.m. and I couldn't sleep anyway, so I sat at my kitchen table with a stack of paperwork I had been avoiding for months. Our original incorporation documents, partnership agreements, intellectual property filings. I wasn't looking for anything specific. I was just desperate, searching for any thread I could pull. Somewhere around page 40, buried between clauses about equity distribution and board voting rights, I found something that made me stop breathing. The core intellectual property, our code, our algorithms, our entire platform architecture, was registered solely under my name. We had done it that way 4 years ago for speed, since I was the technical founder. Cade was supposed to file amended paperwork later, but he never got around to it. I read the paragraph 3 more times, making sure I understood it correctly. Then I pulled up our patent filings and found the same thing. My name. Only my name. Cade had stolen our money. He had destroyed our reputation. He had broken my heart and my trust. But he hadn't taken the product. He couldn't, because it was never his to take. My pulse raced as I whispered into the darkness, "You took my cash. You didn't take my company." Mina Vasquez didn't look like a corporate litigator. She was barely 5 feet tall, wore bright red glasses, and had a handshake that could crush walnuts. Her office smelled like leather and printer toner, and she didn't waste time on small talk. "Tell me everything," she said, pen poised over a legal pad. "Don't leave anything out." I talked for an hour straight. She asked sharp questions that cut right to the heart of every detail. She didn't pat my hand or offer sympathy. She just listened and wrote. When I finished, I showed her everything I had brought: bank statements, transfer records, access logs, IP registrations, our original partnership documents. She spread them across her desk and studied them like a surgeon examining scans before an operation. "This isn't a business disagreement," she said finally. "This is theft. Clear, documented theft." "So what do we do?" Mina leaned back in her chair and smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had just been handed a puzzle they were going to enjoy solving. "If we do this, we do it quietly," she said. "We let him think he's safe. We let him think he got away with it. And then we take everything back. While the world assumed my company was dead, I went underground. I shrank the team down to just 2 people. Reed and Fiona, junior developers who believed in me more than I believed in myself. We moved out of our nice downtown office and into a cramped space above a laundromat on the other side of the city. The new office had stained carpets and a radiator that clanked at random hours. But it had desks, internet, and a door that locked. That was enough. I didn't post anything on LinkedIn. I didn't tell most of my friends what I was doing. I just worked 12 hours a day, sometimes more, rebuilding everything Cade thought he had killed. Reed and Fiona worked just as hard, fueled by cheap pizza and the stubborn refusal to let one man destroy what we had built together. 3 months into our quiet resurrection, I got an email that made me read it 5 times to make sure it was real. It was from someone I had pitched 2 years ago, before we even had a working product. His name was Marcos Reyes, and he ran a small venture fund. "Heard rumors about what happened," he wrote. "If you're still building, I want to talk." The conference room at Marcos Reyes' office was nothing like the fancy spaces I had pitched in before. It was small, with mismatched chairs and a whiteboard covered in old notes. But Marcos listened to my story without flinching. He didn't interrupt or ask accusatory questions. He just nodded and let me talk. When I finished, including every embarrassing detail about how I had trusted Cade completely, Marcos was quiet for a long moment. "Here's the thing," he finally said. "I'm not interested in backing companies that have never faced problems. I'm interested in backing founders who get knocked down and get back up." He offered a modest investment, enough to keep us alive for another year and hire a few more people. In exchange, he wanted equity. But the deal was structured around me, and only me. I signed the term sheet with hands that trembled slightly. "One more thing," Marcos said as I stood to leave. "When you're ready to deal with Cade, call me. I know people who can help find him." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. For the first time in months, I felt something that might have been hope. Mina's private investigator was worth every penny. It took him 6 weeks, but he finally delivered what I needed. Cade's exact location. The dossier arrived in my email at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. I opened it with shaking hands. Cade Mills was living in a luxury condo in Miami Beach. There were photos, time-stamped and geotagged. Cade by a pool, drink in hand, laughing at something off camera. Dakota beside him in a designer swimsuit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. They looked happy. They looked relaxed. They looked like people who had gotten away with something terrible and were enjoying every second of it. One photo showed Cade on the condo's balcony, reading something on his phone. He was smirking, That same charming smirk that had convinced me to trust him 4 years ago. I zoomed in on his face until the pixels blurred. Then I printed the photo and pinned it to the wall above my desk. Every time I felt tired or hopeless over the next few months, I looked at that picture and remembered what he had done. "Enjoy it," I whispered to his smug face. "It's rented happiness, and the bill is coming due." Building a legal case is nothing like what you see in movies. There are no dramatic discoveries or last-minute revelations. There's just paperwork. Mountains of it. Nina and I spent weeks gathering every piece of evidence we could find. Email threads where Cade insisted on handling all things finance because I was too busy with the technical side. Slack messages where he promised the team their jobs were secure, even as he was planning his escape. We documented every transfer, every access log, every board meeting note. I handed over our IP filings, showing clearly that the core technology belonged to me alone. We compiled investor agreements that Cade had signed, promising to act in good faith. By the time Nina was done, she had assembled a complaint that read like a biography of betrayal. Every lie Cade had ever told was laid out in black and white. "Once we file this," Nina said, sliding the final draft across her desk, "there's no going back. He'll know you're coming for him." I picked up the pen without hesitating. I'd been ready since the bank showed zero. I signed my name and pushed the paper back to her. Nina filed the lawsuit on a rainy Wednesday morning. Along with the complaint, she requested an emergency court order to freeze Cade's accounts and any assets connected to the stolen funds. I tried to work that day, but I couldn't focus on anything. I kept checking my phone, waiting for news. The hours crawled by. I imagined Cade in Miami, sipping cocktails by the pool, completely unaware that his perfect escape was about to come crashing down. At 4:47 p.m., Nina texted me. "Order signed. His accounts are frozen pending the hearing." I read the message 3 times. Then I put my phone down and cried, not from sadness this time, but from relief. I pictured Cade waking up tomorrow morning, trying to pay for his fancy brunch with his stolen money, and having his card declined. I imagined the confusion on his face, then the realization that something had gone very wrong. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through until morning. No nightmares. No waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing. Just peace and the quiet knowledge that the fight had finally begun. Nina's investigator sent me a video 3 days later. Security footage from the entrance of Cade's Miami condo building. I watched it on my laptop in the office above the laundromat. Reed and Fiona crowded behind me. A man in a plain polo shirt walked up to Cade, who was standing barefoot near the mailboxes, holding a green smoothie. Dakota stood behind him in oversized sunglasses, looking annoyed at the interruption. The process server handed Cade a thick envelope. Cade took it with a confused smile, probably thinking it was some kind of delivery mistake. Then he opened it. The video had no sound, but I didn't need audio to understand what happened next. Cade's face shifted from confusion to shock, to something darker. His smoothie dropped from his hand, splattering green across the marble floor. Dakota grabbed for the papers, scanning them frantically. The server pointed to a specific page, probably the part about the asset freeze, and Cade physically stumbled backward. I saved the video to my phone. Some nights, when the stress got overwhelming, I watched it again. It never stopped being satisfying. Cade finally broke his silence, but not by calling me. Instead, he launched a campaign to destroy my reputation before I could destroy his. He started calling former investors, telling them I was vindictive and emotionally unstable. He claimed the lawsuit was overblown and that I was trying to steal the company we had built together. Someone forwarded me a group text where Cade painted himself as the victim of my mental breakdown. He even suggested I had been planning to push him out of the company for months. My hands shook with anger as I read his lies. I wanted to respond publicly, to post the truth everywhere and let the world see who he really was. But Nina stopped me. "Let him talk," she said calmly. "The more he lies now, the worse he looks when the truth comes out in court. Every false statement he makes is another shovel of dirt on his own grave." So I stayed quiet. I kept working. I let Cade dig his hole deeper and deeper. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The messages started arriving a few weeks after Cade's smear campaign began. Former employees reaching out, wanting to know my side of the story. One of them, a sales rep named Jessica who had left 6 months before the theft, sent me a LinkedIn message. "I just got a DM from Cade saying you're the one who pushed him out. That doesn't sound right to me." Instead of defending myself in writing, I invited her for coffee. I told her everything: the stolen money, the planned disappearance, the lawsuit. She sat in stunned silence. "I always thought something was off with him," she finally said. "The way he handled expenses, the trips that didn't make sense." "What do you mean?" Jessica told me about company credit card charges that never got explained. Flights to cities where we had no clients. Dinners at restaurants that cost more than our monthly marketing budget. One by one, other former employees came forward with similar stories. Cade, borrowing petty cash, using company funds for personal purchases, hiding expenses in vague budget categories. Nina reviewed everything and smiled her puzzle-solving smile. We just went from a strong case to a devastating one. Just when I thought we had Cade cornered, he surprised me. His lawyer filed a counterclaim, accusing me of mismanaging company funds. According to Cade, he had only taken the money to protect his share from my reckless decisions. He claimed I had been planning to dilute his equity and force him out. The filing included emails that looked damaging out of context, messages where I discussed cost-cutting and restructuring the cap table. His lawyer had cherry-picked phrases that made me sound like the villain. For the first time since starting this fight, I felt genuine fear. What if the court believed him? What if his lies were more convincing than my truth? I sat in Nina's office, staring at the counterclaim documents, my stomach twisted in knots. Nina closed the file and looked at me with calm determination. "He wants to open every book? Fine, we'll open them all." She pulled out a fresh legal pad, including every book he thought he had hidden. "What does that mean?" "It means discovery goes both ways. He just gave us permission to dig into everything. Discovery in a lawsuit is like turning over every rock in someone's life and examining what crawls out." Cade's lawyers tried to limit what we could access, but the judge ruled broadly in our favor. We got subpoenas for his personal bank records, his credit card statements, even his communication with Dakota. What we found changed everything. This wasn't Cade's first time. A previous business partner had quietly settled with him 3 years ago after financial irregularities. The settlement included a non-disclosure agreement, which is why it never showed up in any background check. But that wasn't all. Cade's personal accounts showed luxury purchases timed exactly with our fundraising rounds. A watch for $12,000 the week after we closed our seed round. A designer bag for Dakota the day our Series A money hit the company account. And then there were the payments to a private gambling app. Thousands of dollars, week after week. Nina spread the evidence across her conference table like a prosecutor preparing for trial. "This isn't just theft," she said. "This is a pattern. This is who he is." I never expected the phone call from the district attorney's office. A financial crimes investigator named Taurus had heard about our case through one of our investors. He asked if he could review the documents we had compiled. I agreed, not really understanding what it might mean. 2 weeks later, Torres called me back. "Miss Chen." "Sorry, Miss Park," he corrected himself. "The evidence you've gathered is substantial. If the amounts cross certain thresholds, and if the pattern of behavior is as clear as it appears, this may not just be a civil matter." My heart hammered in my chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we may be looking at criminal fraud charges." I sat down heavily, my legs suddenly unable to support me. I had started this fight wanting my money back, wanting justice, wanting Cade to face consequences. But criminal charges? Prison? That night, I stared at my reflection in my dark apartment window and asked myself a question I couldn't answer. How far did I really want this to go? Cade's lawyer called Nina 3 days before our major hearing. He had a proposal. They would return 60% of the stolen funds. Both sides would sign non-disparagement agreements. The lawsuit would be dismissed. No admission of guilt. No public record of what Cade had done. I sat in Nina's conference room, staring at the settlement offer. It was more money than I had ever seen in one place in my entire life. Marcos was there too, quiet and watchful. "This is a good deal," Nina said carefully. "You would recover most of your losses. You could move on with your life and your company." I thought about the months of stress, the sleepless nights, the employees who had lost their jobs because of Cade's betrayal. I thought about the next person Cade might do this to if he walked away without consequences. I slid the settlement papers back across the table. No, I said. I don't want his money to stay quiet. I want the truth on the record. Nina nodded slowly. Marco smiled. Then we go to court, Nina said. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, hard benches, a judge who looked like she had seen every kind of human disappointment. Cade sat at the defendant's table in an expensive suit, looking confident. His lawyer painted me as erratic and inexperienced, someone who had panicked when the business faced challenges and was now blaming her partner for her own failures. I sat with my hands folded, forcing myself to stay calm while lies filled the room. Then Nina stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit 47. She projected an email onto the courtroom screen. It was from Cade to Dakota, sent at 2 a.m. on the night of the theft. Moving everything before Lexi notices, the email read, She's too stressed to keep track. By the time she figures it out, we'll be gone. The courtroom went completely silent. The judge read the email twice, her expression hardening. Then she looked over her glasses at Cade. Mr. Mills, she said slowly, you understand how this looks, correct? Cade's confident smile finally cracked. The judge ruled decisively in my favor. Cade was ordered to repay the full stolen amount plus significant damages for the harm caused to the company. His shares were forfeited entirely. The freeze on his assets would remain until the judgment was satisfied in full. But the real blow came at the end. The court notes, the judge said, that the documentation presented here has already been forwarded to the district attorney's office. The pattern of behavior demonstrated in this case raises serious questions that extend beyond civil liability. Cade's face went white. As we filed out of the courtroom, I heard him explode at his lawyer in the hallway. Accusations, threats, desperate attempts to find someone else to blame. Then I heard my name. Lexi, Cade called out, his voice cracking. Wait, can we talk? Please? I kept walking. Past the security guards, past the reporters who had started gathering, past the life I had once shared with someone I thought was my friend. I didn't look back. News spreads fast in the startup world. Within a week, an article appeared on a popular tech blog. Co-founder ordered to repay stolen funds after secretly draining company account. The names were slightly altered for legal reasons, but everyone in our industry knew exactly who it was about. Cade's phone stopped ringing. Investors who had once fought for his attention now pretended they had never heard of him. His LinkedIn connections dropped by the hundreds. The Leximi condo went up for sale under distress conditions. Through mutual contacts, I heard that Dakota had left him after his credit card started declining, and the legal threats became impossible to ignore. I found myself scrolling through Cade's social media one evening. The account that had once been full of pool photos and champagne toasts was now silent. No posts in weeks. I waited to feel satisfaction, victory, joy. Instead, I just felt tired and relieved and ready to move forward. I closed the browser and went back to work. Today, I'm sitting in a new office, not the fancy downtown space we started in, and not the cramped room above the laundromat. Something in between, bright, clean, and entirely mine. Our rebuilt product is live and growing. We have real clients now, companies that trust us with their logistics because we earned that trust the hard way. Reed and Fiona are still here, now with senior in their titles and equity in a company that actually has value. Every document, every login, every share structure is clean and transparent. I learned that lesson the hard way, and I'll never forget it. Last week, we signed our biggest contract yet. The team celebrated with coffee cups instead of champagne, because we're still careful with money, but we celebrated. Sometimes I think about Cade, wherever he is now. I wonder if he understands what he lost, not just the money or the legal battle, but the chance to build something real. He thought he was stealing my future when he emptied that account. He thought he was ending my story, but all he really did was pay for his own downfall. And me? I'm still here. Still building, still growing. That's the only revenge that matters.